At first glance, it's just a doll. Big eyes, a mischievous grin, a little creature called Labubu, you've probably seen it. It's beloved by collectors, it's trending everywhere online, and it sells out in seconds. But behind the plush and plastic, there's a much deeper story. One that whispers of ancient folklore, a concept called inversion, and the spiritual mimicry that's hiding in plain sight. It is the story that asks us to look a little closer at the things we welcome into our lives. The creator of Labubu, Kazing Lung, is a Hong Kong-born illustrator who was inspired by Nordic fairy tales. He called it part of the monsters, a world of playful chaos. But this isn't just simple whimsy. If you look at the history of mythology and folklore, you'll see that Labubu fits a very old pattern, the trickster archetype. Think about figures like Loki from Norse mythology, or Pan from Greek lore, or even the coyote in Native American stories. These are characters who blur the lines between good and evil. They smile while sowing confusion, they wear innocence like a mask. The trickster's role is to disrupt, to challenge norms, and to embody a chaotic energy that isn't necessarily evil, but it isn't purely good either. It exists in that gray area, and that's exactly where Labubu seems to sit. This playful, chaotic nature is a key part of its appeal, but it's also a characteristic that has deep spiritual roots. Now, let us talk about a concept that is becoming more and more common in our culture today, inversion. This is the idea of flipping things on their head. Evil is rebranded as edgy, darkness gets dressed up in glitter. We see spiritual symbols stripped of their original, sacred meaning and then sold back to us as just a style, a fashion statement. Labubu's grin, for instance, isn't just quirky. When you place it side by side with certain archetypes from history, you start to see an aesthetic echo. Think about ancient depictions of chaotic or demonic figures. They often have those same wide eyes, the toothy smiles, that same unpredictable, chaotic energy. To be clear, this isn't to say the doll itself is possessed or evil. That's not the point. The point is that it is patterned after an aesthetic that has historically been associated with spiritual forces that are not benign. It taps into a visual language that our culture is increasingly embracing without questioning its origins. This trend goes far beyond just one doll. It's about a spiritual sleight of hand happening all around us. The sacred is made silly, and the profane is made playful. You see it in cartoons for children that are filled with occult themes. You see it with pop idols using third eye imagery or other spiritual symbols as part of their brand. You see it with so-called manifestation influencers who simplify deep spiritual practices into a get-rich-quick scheme. Children are handed symbols they don't understand, and adults are often told they're overthinking it if they dare to ask questions. There's a subtle desensitization happening. We're being conditioned to accept these symbols without discernment, to consume them as entertainment, and to ignore the spiritual weight they once carried. It's a slow, quiet shift in our collective consciousness, one that redefines our understanding of what is harmless and what is not. But Scripture gives us a framework for understanding these things. It warns us to be discerning. Isaiah 5:20 says, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness." This speaks directly to the cultural inversion we're seeing, reversing the true meaning. Then in 2 Corinthians 11:14, we're reminded that even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. This tells us that things that are spiritually dangerous won't always appear monstrous or scary. They can appear beautiful, appealing, and innocent. And finally, 1 John 4:1 commands us, "Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God." Discernment isn't about living in fear. It's about seeking clarity. It's having the courage to stop and ask, what spirit is this thing echoing? What story is this toy, this show, this trend telling my children? And what am I, consciously or unconsciously, inviting into my home, my heart, and my hands? These aren't questions of fear, but of wisdom and stewardship over our spiritual well-being. So at the end of the day, Labubu is just a doll. It's a piece of plastic and vinyl. But the obsession, the frenzy, the cultural moment surrounding it, that's a mirror. It's a mirror reflecting a culture that is deeply hungry for wonder, for magic, for something beyond the mundane. But at the same time, we are starving for truth. We are so eager for enchantment that we often accept illusions without question. Let's not be afraid to look deeper, to ask the hard questions, and to choose the solid ground of light over the shifting sands of illusion. Every time, it's about being intentional, being aware, and building our lives on a foundation that is true and unshakable. Thank you so much for watching and for exploring this topic with me. If this resonated with you, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more content that looks beyond the surface. Let's continue the conversation with wisdom and grace. See you in the next one.